Hello, everybody. We are members of the Great Hucklow Twinning Association, Twin with Parisot in France, and we've got together to read the book The Lady and the Unicorn by Tracy Chevalier, because the Parisot Literary Festival, Festilit, this year has the writer Tracy Chevalier talking about her books, and as unfortunately none of us can be there, we thought we could kind of contribute to any discussion and show support for the festival and interest in it by actually having our own discussion, which we would like to share with people in Parisot. So just to introduce ourselves, I'm Mandy and I've been involved with the group for about 5 years. And
I'm Liz, and I've been involved in it from the start. I think.
Yes. As have I, and I'm Jen. I'm just wondering if I'm moving this just very slightly.
Yeah, that's better.
Whoops, I'm doing the wrong way.
Going the wrong way.
Doing the wrong way. We're just trying to adjust the camera so we.
Yeah,
Oh, there
that's
we
it,
are.
that's
We're a
better.
bit
Then
better.
we're
We're
all
all
in.
kind of
Yeah.
all in. There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I chose this book to read to suggest because I knew the tapestries, which are La Dame à la Licorne is the name of the tapestries which are in the Musée du Moyen Âge in Paris, and I first saw them probably about 12 years ago, and then realised that Tracy Chevalier had written a book based on them, and I first read the book 10 years ago, so it's been a real pleasure to read the book again. And we prepared some questions to have as a basis for our discussion. So I just thought we could just sort of work through them and see what came out of the discussion. Okay?
Indeed.
So the first question is, the identity of the painter who created the 6 panels of the tapestry remains unknown. In Nicolas des Innocents, Tracy Chevalier has given us her fictional version of the painter. What do you think of him? Is he a plausible character? Is his role in the novel plausible? Would anybody like to say what they think? Janet, I think you're still a bit out of the
I'm
picture.
still down the picture. It's probably
Can you
intentional,
come a bit
actually.
closer?
If I come closer,
Yeah.
I'll probably
We're
come
all
a bit
friends.
closer.
Yeah.
We're all friends. Liz, why don't you?
Well, I think he comes across as a painter, but he seems to me just to come across as a painter and someone who has great desire for women.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of carnal bits to it. I'd like to have known a bit more about him, I think, than just those two aspects. Certainly, we knew all about his women, and he was amazing. I'm not sure I believe about meeting this aristocrat's daughter under a table.
Yes.
It does seem a bit far-fetched, but no, I think he needs rounding.
Yes.
I mean, I have to say, I agree. I didn't find him a sympathetic character. He was arrogant, selfish, and totally self-seeking. I didn't actually feel he was at all developed as a human being. From that point of view, I didn't find him very plausible. But I don't know enough about the era and about the role of artists in that time to know to what extent it might have been plausible that he would have had such ready access to people in this aristocratic household, or the response to him, to my mind. And I think this perhaps picks up later in a later question. I think picking up on what Liz was saying, I thought that Claude's response to him and his to her just seemed to me very surprising for its time.
Yeah.
And I think for a 14-year-old girl brought up in a very sheltered background, it made the storyline happen. But beyond that, frankly,
Yeah.
I didn't find it at all plausible.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with both of you, really. I think, especially at the beginning, him having the meeting with Claude under the table, it sort of set you off thinking, oh, come on, really.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you find out about his other women and actually the havoc he's created in some of their lives. The first, is it Marie-Celeste?
Yeah.
The servant to begin with, who's then pregnant by him. And that you realise that as the story goes on, the convent, that's where illegitimate children went, that's where they were brought up, you know, and it was a very tough place, because we remember at the end, Beatrice says that the best thing that ever happened to her was when she was taken away from the convent to be a lady in waiting.
Yeah.
So you sort of see, don't you, the, I don't know, the results of his sort of sexual desire. And there's one thing which, I don't know, one in a way sort of good thing about him is that if you remember in Brussels, when they're tour, he discovers that they want to marry Elena
yes.
off to Jacques Lebrun, and he's pretty disgusted about that, because, you know, he knows that this is a very unattractive man, and Elena certainly loathes him, and what a dreadful thing that is. And that's one of the reasons that he actually leaves Brussels, isn't it, without sort of saying goodbye, telling Eddie what he's doing. And on the one hand, at that moment, you think, you know, you're kind of on his side, because you, the reader, feel the same for Elena. But you later think, well, you know, actually he showed one bit of sort of sensitivity and understanding towards a woman's real situation there, but actually the rest of the time he doesn't really. So I sort of agree with you, actually. I think he's a bit of a plot device, isn't he? On the other hand, we have to acknowledge his sort of skills as an artist, don't we, really?
Oh,
Because
yes.
in the end, when they see the tapestry, and they're all...
Yes,
know,
they all
Georges Duchamp,
won over
overwhelmed
by it.
by
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Yeah.
And he just draws a falcon
Yes.
in it.
Yeah, but this is just an author's... I mean, it... the tapestries are superb, and he's not a real character who's done them. So I suppose I don't even see. I don't know that necessarily follows. It doesn't make him a particularly redeeming character. It's just it's fiction.
No,
Somebody was very clever and did this, and yes,
Yeah.
they are amazing. I mean, I haven't. I have to confess, until just now, and I'm looking forward to us being off camera so I can have a proper look at all these pictures, because they look gorgeous. I mean,
Yes.
and the mille fleurs
Yes.
aspect of it.
Absolutely beautiful.
I just think it looks fantastic. So I'm looking forward to really exploring that. And I mean, we one of your other questions leads on to that, because that's what I did find absolutely fascinating. What I really enjoyed about the book was actually finding out more about the tapestry and the weaving, and things you don't really normally think about, and how the fact that it would have all been rolled up, and so you don't actually get to see. It's not like a picture where you see all the component parts, but you're weaving one particular part of it, and it's you don't have an idea of the totality. And the fact that you're able to get the consistency across it. I mean, it's staggering.
It's amazing
when you think about it, the skill in that. So, but I'm jumping ahead. Yeah. So,
well, I'm just going to show to the. This is what we're looking at. Actually, this is the, if you like, the central, the first or the last picture, Mon seul désir, and it's absolutely beautiful.
The colours are so
gorgeous. They're amazing, and they're incredibly well preserved. Actually, in the museum.
They have been restored, haven't they?
I think probably they have. Yeah.
Yes, because I Googled them. But I have been put off tapestries hanging in stately homes, because usually they're colourless.
Yes, they've faded, aren't they?
They've faded, colour. But this is stunning.
Yeah.
And I liked the explanation of why there was so little blue.
Oh, yes.
And all the red, of course. You know, this is the nasty Jacques Duboeuf can't stand. So, I mean, that's brilliant. So, but they are so incredibly vibrant. It is absolutely gorgeous. I really do want to go and see them now, I confess. Very much so.
Yeah. So just sort of going on then from Nicolas and what he was like, and especially it's with women, what do you think the book sort of tells us about women's role in that time? Because actually one thing about the book is, I think there's a huge cast of characters for such a small book, but I think she does quite well at actually picking out women from different social statuses and tell us, you know, what do you think about what it says?
The aristocratic woman Genevieve and the Christine, the weaver's wife, they're both in a similar position with their husbands. Their husbands make the decisions.
Yeah.
In both cases, the husband decides who the daughter marries.
Yes.
And the mothers have no effect at all. They've got no influence.
Yeah.
Which is shocking to the core.
Yes, yes.
Well, I think it's of its time. I mean, the state of women was dire. They were abused, either physically physically and or emotionally. I think even Christine, you thought she
Yes.
had a reasonable relationship with Georges, but I'm sure that I read something about her being beaten and things by him. And
I don't remember that actually.
I thought I did. But you see, this is the problem. I need to go back and read it. But I thought that, and
She's a strong character too.
she's a strong character. But I thought there was at one point there was something that intimated that she.
I think he did her once.
Yeah.
I think it was she was sort of reflecting on this and said actually he had just once, but it wasn't a sort of, I don't think it was a
serial beater,
beater,
although whether he became one afterwards, who knows? But I mean, the women had no life, they had no control, they were simply chattels. Claude's mother was so trapped that she was probably deluded about how wonderful the convent would be.
Yes.
Oh,
But on the other
absolutely.
hand, it was pretty awful. Claude and Aliénor, chattels of their fathers and just property to be disposed of. I mean, I reckon that Beatrice and Christine probably had the best of it of all the women. Beatrice seemed to be very. She was very knowing of her state, so she knew what she wanted, and she actually probably pretty much got it. And she got her. She had greater control over their destinies.
Why
I
do you
thought
think
there was.
Beatrice did? Because I mean, she was a lady in waiting, wasn't she?
Yes.
She was, but she said she wanted a husband, and she wanted the artist as her husband, and she managed to achieve it.
Yeah.
And that was her escape.
Yeah.
She got out.
I didn't find that very convincing.
Totally implausible, but
I
you know.
thought, why didn't he say no and walk away?
Yeah, I think that was wrapping the novel up. You know, in Shakespeare plays, sometimes you have some of them, you have the major characters getting married off, but sometimes also then you have the minor ones.
Yes.
Somebody comes in and says, okay, you can marry so-and-so. That happens, I think, in Twelfth Night with Malvolio, or I can't remember now quite. But it's quite a sort of common sort of trope really in plays. And to me, it reminded me of that they were just put together. You know, I don't think it mattered terrifically whether it was plausible or not. But I think Christine is different from the wife, from the
Genevieve.
mother, Genevieve. That's right.
Or
Because
Genevieve.
I mean, I know that yes, okay, her husband has the final say about the marriage, but she's a working woman. She's working there, and as we know, she wants to weave, and she does eventually get to do that. So she has some weeks, I guess, of being a sort of weaver, one of the team, actually. Using her skills. Now, prior to that, she wasn't actually allowed to weave, but she was certainly very important in the workshop. She had a real role beyond the kind of the domestic and the sort of glamorous. And I get the impression that they mostly had a fairly, not equal, because it wasn't like at all for any women, but sort of, I think they were more equal. I think she, by far, is the woman with the most enviable situation of all of them, actually, because she had some power, she had a role in life beyond the decorative. And also Genevieve, I mean, I've just been rereading some notes I made, and she said at one point that she'd been married off to a man with a cold heart.
Yes.
I mean, he was nasty. Well, not nasty, he was just completely uninterested in women and people, wasn't he? Just was interested in battles and sort of
and
power.
His power, his status, his wealth. And there was no love or affection there at all. So for me, the class of women actually that was the most... I know that had the best of it actually was the sort of the
Artisan
the
type.
artisan class, the woman in that class really.
It shows how strong the guild was.
Oh yeah,
That she wasn't allowed to do this and that, and they were terrified when the guy came around to have a look at them weaving.
Yes, and I was shocked because they had to wait for the bell to ring before they could start work.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was interesting.
And there was a bell when they had to stop work as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, no, that thing they didn't want to work in the evenings, did they? Or on Sundays. That was all very carefully controlled.
Yes. Yeah. But in fact, when he was so busy, George had to. He was able to prepare everything ready to start weaving.
Yes. Yes.
But he couldn't start weaving until he heard the guild bell.
Yeah.
Which, yes, that's quite amazing.
It is.
And I like those details actually. I thought she was
So do
very,
I.
very good at depicting the kind of that milieu as well as the actual construction of the tapestries. I mean, she presumably did loads of research into tapestries at that time.
Is that still working?
Yeah, it's still in the green light. I think means that the camera's still on. It's just the screen.
Yeah. What about going on? But what about thinking about sort of? I mean, this is what we've been saying, really: sex, love, and relations between men and women. We thought it was rather implausible, Claude and him under the table, didn't we? And she seemed to be very sort of aware of sexual desire at that age. I mean, part of me, my first reaction to that was, oh, this is implausible. And then I thought, well, maybe it wasn't. I mean...
I don't know, but to me, it was a bit of a device again. And not very... did they use tablecloths? I thought it was all bare wooden things because, how much was food eaten daintily with knives and forks and on tables with embroidered? There was painted embellishments. This is in the last scene, and on these tablecloths that went all the way to the floor. I presume that's an accurate detail, but I don't know. And it made it much easier for them to hide under the table. But
what do you think about Eleanor and her sort of attraction to Nicholas? What happened there?
Yes, he must have been a very attractive man, but I did think that she might have the best situation of the women.
Oh, okay.
Because she married this guy who clearly had loved her for a long time. And they had 3 sons after the one that was Nicholas's.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what her marriage was like, because Philippe seemed such a gentle person.
But I thought we got an indication that she was not the slightest bit interested in him, really. She didn't seem to be particularly appreciative of the fact he came and rescued her. And I thought, because there was something she was concerned about being a burden on her family. And for the fact that she was so worried about being a burden on her family, and then she'd go and willingly allow herself to get pregnant.
Yes.
Again, totally implausible, because that was going to be even more of a burden and an embarrassment. You thought of its just weird to actually...
But the one thing she wanted was to save herself from Jacques
Leboeuf. She saved herself from Jacques Leboeuf. And also, she wanted to know passion. That was very well done. Yeah. Her attraction for this guy who we know to be a rogue and, not a good guy to fall in love with. But she did, and that's what emotion is like, and passion.
Well, the fact that it's something that, despite her blindness, it's something that she could sense and she could enjoy. So that, but again, of its time.
Yeah, and I think the relationship with Philippe as well. I think initially she just ignores him, doesn't she?
Yes.
But there's a scene, I can't remember where it is, towards the end, where I think when they were weeping together, actually, she starts kind of showing him things.
And he starts picking it up.
And relating, that's right. And I think, the indication is that they're going to be okay. It's not the greatest passion of her life, but it's going to be okay, actually. So...
in that sense, she probably is in the end, the happiest.
I don't know. I think there's a good case for Christine being the happiest as well.
Yes, because Eleanor was blind, wasn't she? And she wasn't able to see her own baby and so on. Okay, so the novel is set in Paris and Brussels. How are these 2 places represented? What did you think about that?
Well, it depends whose opinion you take. If you take Nicholas's opinion, Paris was wonderful and Brussels was a filthy place, and much smaller. To get a real sense of the difference, I don't think we really got that.
I agree I didn't get much of a sense at all, other than an antipathy.
From him.
From him and from them.
Yes,
from the people in Brussels that didn't feel particularly kindly towards Paris, and Nicolas didn't feel the slightest bit warm towards Brussels. So I felt I didn't actually really see very much of either place. I didn't get a feel for either place beyond that.
No, I don't think she shows you it objectively as like a third-person narrator. It's only through what they say. But I like that. I thought it was... I don't know whether it's true or not, of course, either, but I like the fact that there was this... Because it's a bit like, London and the rest of England, I think. There's this sort of, guy who thinks he's the bee's knees, and Paris is a centre of culture, art, sophistication, all of this, and that these these Belgian people are sort of hicks, really.
But what was interesting there was that the fact they were in the process of building the Grand Place, weren't they? Was that, again, have I got that wrong? I had a feeling, and it was going up, and this is this was going to be very grand, which of course it is.
Yes.
So perhaps
yes, there was a bit about
there was
that.
something. Was it something about it being constructed?
Yes,
There
I
was,
think.
yes,
Oh,
I'm pretty
okay.
sure there was.
Ah, right, I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was as if they were going to be, but they weren't quite there yet. And yet, of course, as we know, they were absolutely fantastic weavers.
Yes.
So I just kind of liked that, and also they kind of she changed the dialogue, she changed the tone, didn't she, of how the Belgian people spoke. They were a bit more. I don't know whether to me it was as if they were speaking slightly northern accents or something. She had that bit of idiom there, the bit of dialogue, and I thought that worked quite well. Of letting us know that this was a sort of different place. Yeah. What did you think about how she, I mean, we touched on this a bit, how she was about evoking the historical setting of the late 15th century? I mean, we talked about the weaving. Were there any other historical details which you liked or found didn't like? Or
I liked her description of the aristocrats and how they lived. I mean, quite a few things came up. Like, did Genevieve have 13 ladies in waiting
Yes,
who
huge,
followed
I
her
remember.
everywhere?
And they were with her all the time,
Yeah.
weren't they?
Horrible. But apart from that, she does describe their clothes, which obviously superb, and their jewels and their banquets, and the idea of putting these tapestries on the walls to hide the roughness and to give warmth and decoration. So I think we got quite a good impression of that. And then again, I think we got a good impression of how the weavers were living in Brussels and the differences. I mean, she didn't start to describe Brussels or anything like that. We only saw it through the eyes of the characters. But no, I thought, I mean, history is my passion, I know, but I was fascinated by it and the details of it all, and about the convents and, obviously the number of people who went into to be nuns. And,
yeah, for all sorts of different reasons.
Yes.
Women ending up there.
Yeah.
And yet, as you say, that was a hard place. I'm quite intrigued by the idea that for Genevieve this was a sort of desirable place to go. Although I have heard in different contexts people saying that actually sometimes women would prefer to go to a convent than to be married to someone they didn't like, and also that a convent was somewhere where women could study. Which if your husband didn't want you to study and just wanted you to be decorative and so on, it was a more positive option sometimes for women than we might perhaps think. Although I think in the end it was painted as being a pretty cold and inhospitable place.
Well, I think Claude gave the impression that she didn't really know what she was letting herself in for, insofar as she got very preferential treatment when she'd been there as a visitor, and that perhaps was the case, but perhaps it was something that was not too important to her, because obviously her perspective will be very different from Claude's, because she's a much more mature woman who is choosing it over and above something that she really doesn't want. Another thing I liked actually, and I don't really know much. I so long ago since I did very much on the 15th century. I really don't know much about it, but I liked the when they were talking about the journeying, about getting between the two. It's so easy to forget.
Yes.
What a pain it must have been trying to get from one to the other, and in the snow and the bad weather and the roughness of the road, and it really brings back home the fact that this was not just a trivial little trip to be undertaken lightly, and I thought that was a good detail. It was in there,
yeah. So, what did you think about the technique of narrating the novel through the viewpoint of the various different characters?
I liked that. Actually.
I liked it too.
I thought it was good, and I thought it actually made the characters more alive and more sympathetic. I thought it was a good technique, and I thought it worked.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I did too. It's good to see different aspects of people.
Yes.
Because everybody, because of their position, partly, but also because of the way they view other people, you can get a better idea of what a character is really like when you've got the opinion of several people, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah. No, I thought that worked well, and you found out more about the character as well, didn't you, when they were narrating their own piece?
Yes.
So a rather minor character like, is it Philippe Latour?
Yes.
Philippe Latour, who marries Eleanor in the end. You know, we found out a bit more about him and where he was coming from through that section where he spoke, really. Yeah, have you got any other, what else do you think about her language? Anything else? I mean, one of the things I think about historical novels is it's sometimes difficult for writers to know how to pitch, well, not only the sort of the third person narration, but the dialogue, how to make it sound as if it's coming from a different era without it being, you know, false or oldie worldy, or I don't know. Sometimes it can. I don't think. I think this was okay in this novel, but sometimes it can feel a bit more artificial.
I found it quite difficult actually, and all this beauty. It
Oh,
rankled, and it didn't
Grated
feel.
sort of thing.
It grated. I have to say, it rang false, and the dialogue didn't really work for me.
Yeah.
Didn't work. I think dialogue is really hard, and sometimes it can work really well, and hers didn't.
Yeah.
Didn't for me.
Yeah. Do you know a novel where you think it's been done better, or?
Oh, lots. Yeah, but I'm just trying to think now.
It's the kind of thing that I think you notice more when it's not working because it grates on you.
It grates, exactly. I mean, exactly. It's something that just feels uncomfortable, and you think.
Yeah. But I think it's a difficult thing, isn't it, to do in a way that comes over as authentic. I mean, actually, for me, it was all right. There were one or two words, but you know, it was.
Yes, I mean, I don't know whether people use the word beauty in that way in those days.
Well, exactly, I don't.
But if they did, then, you know, it's right to use it, isn't it? I mean, was the sort of guy who would be using a word like that.
Yes, he was very forward, wasn't
Yes,
he?
yes.
To put it mildly.
Yeah, it's not. There's a feeling of putting her down when he used that. I think.
You think there was?
Yeah, I do. You know, it's not straightforward.
It's like babe.
How wonderful.
Hello, babe.
What's the
type thing?
Yes, I guess. Yeah.
Perhaps.
But, yes, I did feel there was a bit of a put down, maybe slightly mocking. I don't know.
No, I didn't feel that really. I thought, yes, it was a bit of that sort of hello babe, but on the other hand, you know, she was a young girl who wasn't hoping for much because of her disability.
But he called everybody else beauty as well.
That's
Oh,
true.
yes,
That's
all
true.
of them.
It wasn't just her. It was every female he, apart from possibly Mary Celeste.
Yes.
Or certainly Eleanor. I'm sure Eleanor he called. Yeah, he called Eleanor beauty as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It was his stock phrase.
Yes. So, what do you think? Did you enjoy the book, and what did you enjoy most about it?
I enjoyed it very much. I found it very easy reading because I just stopped reading a non-fiction book that I had to read every word of, you know. And this was a great relief because it was so easy to read.
Yes.
And I look forward to going to bed to read it a bit more.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think so. I think I enjoyed its setting very much. The characters, I enjoyed the characters as well. I think most of them I found quite rounded. Christine, George, even Genevieve, I suppose. Claude, not so sure about. But then I don't know enough about the period to know whether that was the likely behaviour of
Yes.
an Aristotelian
girl.
But I think Christine perhaps was the character who appealed most to me.
Yes. Yes, I enjoyed her. What did you think, Janet, about the book as a whole?
It was a very easy read, which I enjoyed. And I did enjoy the learning about being made aware of the tapestries.
Yeah.
Terrible for my general knowledge
Yes.
that I wasn't at all aware of them before. So that was good, and that was interesting. I have to say I found various aspects quite a bit sort of not very satisfying, and I didn't think the character development. I didn't find it as rounded as I would have wished. But it was on the whole it was quite given it was easy to read. It was also it wasn't difficult. It was quite enjoyable, but it was I forgot it very quickly was my problem, because actually I read it on holiday.
Yeah.
And then sort of thinking about, okay, what did we say about it? It was what do I remember? But I mean, I've just got terrible memory when it comes to things. But I thought there were some nice details in it. And as I said, I thought it was really interesting learning about the tapestry itself and learning about weaving and being made to think about things like the differences between Paris and Brussels and how these things worked. So I thought it was quite thought-provoking in that sense, and I really enjoyed that. So it prompted all sorts of thoughts and curiosities that I will follow up on, I hope. So that was good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed it, actually. I think, like they say, easy to read, fascinated by the weaving and the detail she went into there. So I loved the bit when she was describing about the hachure, this sort of shading, and then the dovetailing, the way that, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the way that the threads were came together, interwoven. And I suppose, we have our own we use dovetailing in a slightly different way now, don't we, the expression. But I really, really enjoyed that, and the whole ambience actually in the workshop and the position of women. I really enjoyed actually how she described the different positions of women, and that the aristocratic women, for all that they had money and nice dresses, they were terribly constrained, weren't they? And simple things as well, like I think the number of illegitimate pregnancies there must have been. In a world where men just sort of had their wicked way, no one, contraception isn't part of it, and, working class girls were just prey to other men taking advantage of them.
Well, which has been the case through
been
history,
the case,
up until
the
quite recently,
1960s,
really.
actually.
So, yes.
But it just brought it home, and I think the way that was contrasted, the lots and the fate of those different women was contrasted. I think I really enjoyed that. It made me think. And I also enjoyed the sort of, not just the making of the tapestries, but how they described the kind of the final thing, and that sort of wonderment that they all had on seeing, the 6 tapestries at the end. And the detail she gives actually about the different, the fruits and the trees that were shown in the tapestries being trees
Is
they
this a
found in
dog?
France. Yes, it is.
It's a dog.
Yeah.
I wanted to look at the tapestries.
Yeah.
And the jewels. Yeah.
So I think it was lovely, and yes, maybe it's prompted us to go, and I certainly would love to go back and have another look at them, and it's made me want to read her other book actually, about the fossils, remarkable creatures.
Yes,
I think
me
it was
too.
a great historical novel.
I think it's a really good
actually, in the
idea.
sense of-
I'm really glad that you actually suggested it as well. I just think it's been a really good thing to do.
Good.
So thank you
Lovely.
for arranging it.
Okay, well, I think that's it.
Okay.
Should we turn it off?
Should we turn it off? We'll wrap it up. Just about, let's see if I can actually get it to turn on again. Oh, goodness gracious me.
Has it gone off? No.
Oh, just a moment. Oh, that's a relief. We can turn it off, hopefully. There we go. And goodbye.